I mean, whether the exact way the Australian government is doing it to get the platforms to provide content to, traditional isn't the right word, but, to newspapers and other content providers who were being stripped by the platforms. Whether the Australian government way of compensating that is exactly the right way, I don't think matters. The point is the principle is right, that some of the revenue should be going to them. So I think they're doing a valuable job in that respect. In relation to, as you said, the involvement in changes to competition law and to privacy law, all of the proposals made by the federal government I think are very, very valuable and essentially on the right track, although, they never go far enough. But they're all just promises at this stage. None of it has yet matured into legislation. And while there's some excuse for that because of COVID, those excuses must be running out. But assuming they do go ahead and implement what they've promised, it seems to me that there will be a valuable Australian contribution to the worldwide combating of surveillance capitalism. This is obviously not something that, Australia can't take on the world of platforms, but in cooperation with other jurisdictions like the European Union, and we have to hope changes in the United States as more and more genuine privacy protective laws are being passed, like the one in California. And there's getting to be an appetite in Washington to restrain monopolies once again, that all of these things might come together into a valuable global creation of an alternative to the surveillance capitalist model and to the emergence of a different model of information capitalism, which is not based on exploitation of personal data on the one hand and monopolies of various sorts on the other hand. But I would say, the three things that you mentioned in your question are all really important. But now there is a fourth one, going back to what we were talking about a few minutes ago, and that is the regulation of artificial intelligence. And I think that the European Union's proposed AI Act banning some unacceptable uses of AI outright and heavily regulating what are classified as high-risk areas of AI, with considerable extraterritorial effect, just like the GDPR, is an important sort of fourth leg on this attempt to create a different type of internet and a different type of information capitalism. There is, at the moment, I think, an unprecedented degree of enactment of new data privacy laws in combination with updating of existing ones. Mm-hmm. That applies to almost every country in Asia at the moment. And with new laws waiting in countries like Pakistan and Sri Lanka. In 10 years' time, the digital sphere, whether we call it the internet or something else by then, is certainly going to change out of recognition, particularly because of the Internet of Things and AI. Those two developments, probably more than any others will make it look very, very different. But, you know, it's not, I mean, this goes without saying almost, but it's not technological determinism that we're looking at here. It's not the technologies that are going to just dictate everything. Human agency is still going to play a really major role. And on the positive side, what I tend to emphasise is to say, well, if we look back over the last 30 years and see the extraordinary things that cooperative endeavours have achieved. I mean, the miracle of open source software producing such incredible quality software that the internet runs on it. And equally so, that Wikipedia could become, you know, the world's leading encyclopedia as an open wiki, and that the profusion and quality of content is so great, and Creative Commons has created all over the world so many really wonderful things. Now, can that migrate into the collaborative development of openly available AI and AI applications in all sorts of fields and AI educational resources? That's, you know, but the alternative is that all of these things, and, you know, particularly the ones dependent upon AI, will become the property of monopoly, well, whether it's publishers, platforms, how do we describe them? But will there be basically monopoly owners of AI tools, and we all become, or, you know, generations after me probably become, you know, the servants of those AI tools? Or will they be using tools that are publicly owned and collaboratively developed and, you know, helping create a really valuable future? So, you know, that's the positive side I look at. But, you know, on the other hand, you know, there are really severe disruptive dangers to the sort of, you know, digital world we've known, of which you know, cyber terrorism, just straight out cyber extortion, those sort of things are going to become more and more prevalent, and particularly state-sponsored attacks on the way the West runs the internet, and things that we see even today. You know, the Fastly collapse yesterday. You know, who knew that the internet suddenly was becoming behind our backs more centralised and completely opposite to the original conception of it by a bunch of mega servers that most of us have never heard of. And, you know, you combine that with the dangers that I was just mentioning, and the possibility that China is developing a whole range of countries that will depend on its technologies and its infrastructure and not that of Western countries, and that we may see, you know, two different cyberspaces developing with very suspicious and tentative bridges between them. You know, there's some fairly dark possibilities sort of out there. But basically, you know, just to answer your basic question, I would say the more that people can do to learn about and participate in the positive side of, you know, the cyberspace, if we want to go back to that old term, the better.